Okay, folks, we are going to pick up where we left off. So we're doing user forms. We've got this form pretty well built. Right at the very end, we didn't quite have time to get our show data all the way set up. So I went ahead and got the last part coded here. So if you download from where we left off last time, so not on today's day, but on last Wednesday's day, this file is posted in the Schedule and Learning Suite. Or if you totally followed us along, then this is the only part that I did without you. So remember that where we finished was with option buttons. So option buttons is, so we did the manufacturer. The whole list of manufacturers is a way to select from a list. It takes 2 clicks because you've got to expand the list and then you got to choose the one. What we said is over here in department, there's only 4 choices. And it's relatively stable. Could we add a new department? Yeah, we could add a new department, but that's a different kind of thing than adding a new manufacturer. You know, we expect to add new manufacturers regularly. We get a new product that we never had this manufacturer before, we have to add the manufacturer. This is like an organizational structural change. So we're saying we're going to go ahead and use option buttons. What's the big disadvantage to using option buttons here? Kind of the one I'm leading up to. What is it? If the options change, I've got to come in here, I've got to edit the form, I've got to put a new option, I've got to change the code. Right? If we get a new manufacturer, we're just kind of set up. It's already set up to kind of read them off the list, and it's kind of designed to be able to have a dynamic list, whereas option buttons, it's more of a fixed list, because changing the list requires changing the code. Okay, but the idea here is that we have a department just written in code. We've got a department, hunting, general, outdoor, apparel. And we're going to convert that into this option button. And that's what our code does right here in our show data. So here in show data, we say, listen, we are going to do a select case statement based on whatever is in column 3. That's where the department is. Is that what it's called, department? Yeah, department. And so we're going to say, if what's in the value property of the cell, whatever our current row is, column 3, if that's apparel, then we're going to set the value property of our apparel option button equal to true. We don't have to worry about setting the other ones to false, because when you've got an option button set, when you set one to true, the rest go false automatically. And so we're just going to set one of these to true based on whichever value we have in that field. We probably should add one more option here, and that is case else. And what are we going to do? So what would this mean, a case else? What should we try to handle if it's none of these things above it? What does that mean? It's not that they didn't select anything, because this isn't a matter of selecting. This is us looking at the data here and us automatically selecting the right button based on the data that's here. So what would it mean if we're looking at column number 3 on our current row? It's not apparel, it's not general, it's not outdoor, it's not hunting. It could be a misspelling. It could be empty. Or maybe someone actually made a new category or a new department and plugged it in here. So, but the point is, in that case, we probably should alert the user. There's some message here. So let's go ahead and just put a message box. MSGBOX. Department not recognized. Well, let's actually put the name of the department, which is in column 3. And it's what we're actually looking at for our case statement. So our message is going to start with that. So whatever was there, we will say is not a recognized recognized department. And comma with critical. We'll let them know this is an error with putting VB critical there. We're not going to change the default button. OK is enough. We don't really have anything to do with it. Just here it is. That's a problem. We'll let you know that. Oh, I do need it. I left it out. Right, very good. I have to concatenate this. Thank you. So here's whatever they typed in. We'll put that, and then ampersand here, and then space is not a recognized department. Now we're not really expecting to see that unless there's some problem with the data. I think all of our data is right now, but if we were to change it, then that would show up. Okay, so if I run the form, should bring that up, and we've got hunting. Yeah, I'm on one that's hunting. It's selecting hunting. That's pretty good. I'll go ahead and close it. I'll come back and choose outdoor, run it again, and now outdoor is selected. So I feel pretty good about that. You guys can test the other ones, general and apparel, and make sure that it works okay. Go back to the code. Any questions? Oh, here's the code. Oh yeah, it'll just say is not a recognized department. Well, we can live. I think we can live with that. You know what we want to do? We'd put an if statement here. If it's blank, we'll put something else up there. Hey, this hasn't been categorized yet. Make sure you choose something here. Otherwise, show the message that we have here. That's right. We got a lot to cover today, so. Oh, VB, let's go ahead and make it so that it triggers. So I'll misspell outdoor. And I'll run it with that being on the active cell. It's what makes that beautiful sound and puts the X here. So that tells folks, hey, this is the problem. This is not just informational. This is a problem that I'm letting you know this is a problem. All right, so now we can go, oh yeah, it's spelled wrong, but now I can just select outdoor, and hopefully, oh, that's the next part we have to do. We haven't written this code yet, but we've got to make it so that when we say OK, when we save the data, it takes this and writes it back out there. So let's go ahead and take a look at that next. Okay, so here's our show data at the top, and then save data is here. Well, they fit both on the same screen. That's really nice. Okay, so now, what shall we do to write this value back out? Right now, let's suppose the user changed this. This is no longer a general product. We're going to categorize this as outdoor. We've got to do something. So someone talk to me, kind of not kind of half VBA, half English. You don't have to write the whole statement here, but talk to me in terms of our structure here. What do we have to do? We want to look at something and then decide something else. Go ahead. Right, okay, so we got to figure out which one they selected, and then we say, based on the one they selected, we'll know which word to put in. So we can do that with an ifs and a bunch of else ifs. It's kind of a neat trick that we can do with a select case that will make the code a lot more readable here. So let's do this. Select case. Now, whatever we put right here next, this is going to be used to compare against every one of our individual case statements. And so as we look up at this one, we said, well, let's just look at whatever value is in the cell, and then decide what to print based on what's there. Here, there's really no way to say which button did they select. We have to look at each button individually. And so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to say select case true. My end select in here. SELECT. So now, remember, I'm looking for equality between each case statement and whatever value is here. Now, almost always, when we build a select case statement, we've got some kind of a variable here. So this is a little bit different way to do it. I'm putting a constant thing here, and so what do I have to have for this case statement to be triggered? What has to be here? Something that evaluates the true. And so I'm going to say, well, let's take a look at the option in our apparel option button. So the value of the apparel option button is either true or false. And so if this is true, then I will have a match between the expression that I'm looking at for my case statement and the expression I'm looking at here. What do I want to do if that's the case? Well, then I'm just going to set my cell equal to apparel. So I'll put a colon here. Oh, by the way, I'm not sure we've talked about the colon. What does the colon do? The colon is not part of the select case syntax. It's not like, oh, this is a select, you're inside of a select case, you got a colon, that means something. No. Colon just means something generally in VBA. Have we talked about it? Maybe we haven't talked about it. If you want to take one statement and you want to break it onto multiple lines, what character do you need to do that? What symbol is that? The underscore character. That lets you take a statement and put it on 2 lines. The colon lets you put 2 statements on a single line. So I can have one statement, put a colon, another statement, put a colon. You can write your whole program on 1 line. Well, there's some things you can't do, like loops and stuff that don't work that way, but you can put a lot of things on 1 line because you can put a colon between, you can put statements, multiple statements on 1 line. And I did that up here as well because this ends up reading a lot better. When I have just 1 line that gets executed, depending on what's happening with the case statement, having these be on the same line puts it into a structure that's much more readable. And so I'm doing the same thing down here. So if true is equal to the value of my apparel option button, then I'm just going to say the current cell that or the column 3 of the current row is going to be equal to apparel. And we'll do that 3 or 4 times. I think I'll do it 3 times. And then we'll put an else in there. Is there a question over here? Oh no. That's okay. Kind of a scratch looks very much like a raised hand out of the corner of your eye, or the corner of my eye anyway. So since I've only got 4 options, and it will have to be one of these, I think I'm going to put general as the last one. Then I'll do the rest. So hunting, OPT hunting, outdoor, OPT outdoor. Okay, so that should give me then the ability to save this data as well. So this is working with option buttons. Checkboxes, by the way, was just the next control over. We'll come back and I'll show this code again. I know you're probably still working on it. I mean, being that I'm so lightning fast with the keyboard and all. So option button is this guy right here. The next one before that is the checkbox. Checkboxes are exactly the same as option buttons, except what's the difference? Yeah, you turn them on and off individually, but they have a value property, just like we see here as well. So whatever the name of the option button dot value or the checkbox dot value is true or false depending on whether it's checked or not. So they really behave the same. We do option buttons here in this example because option buttons have one more characteristic, and that is when you select one, it unselects the others. And of course, with checkboxes, that's not the case. Could you make that the case? What do you think? Could you make checkboxes behave like option buttons? There's no property that lets you do that. They're not intended to do that, but could you make them behave that way? Yeah, every time it got clicked, you could just go, oh, there's an event called click. When that thing gets clicked, we can just check to see, oh, what's the value? If it's true, make the rest of them, just go to the others and say, that one's false, that one's false, that one's false, that one's false. So you could make it behave that way. Okay. Let's just check and make sure this works. So I'm going to come up to hunting and run my form. There's hunting. I'll change that one to apparel. We'll say OK. And it's changed that one to apparel. Nice thing here is I'm going to come to this one that's misspelled for outdoor. And I'll run the code here. I get the error message. Not recognized. Outdo is not a recognized department. And I'll even leave it blank here. Now, when I say OK, based on the code that we wrote, what's going to happen? Yeah, I should change it to general. Say OK. Yeah, it's changed it to general because we checked to see which one was checked. And we said, what did we say? We said, hey, if we're going to see which one's true, is apparel's value true? No. Outdoors? No. Hunting? No. Well, if none of those are true, then we're just going to categorize it as general. So even though none of them were selected, it went to general. So that's kind of nice. If it's not one of those, we're just going to recategorize it as general. Question? Oh, that would be a problem. How do you spell apparel? A-P-P-A-R-E-L. 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 See, the names are okay if I've got them spelled wrong as long as they're consistent. But the strings, I think I got the strings right. Oh, maybe I have it spelled wrong out here. Oh, that's totally possible. So let's look at the oh yeah, it's spelled wrong here. Yeah, we should probably spell it right here. The code will work okay this way, but it'd be good to have this spelled right. A-P-P, oops, A-R-E-L. Thank you. Okay. We have now officially done the easy stuff on user forms. This next one is going to be a little bit more complex. But any questions on option buttons, or should we need to go back to the code for another moment, or are we ready to go? Are we ready to move on? Ready to go? Okay. Let's look at this next column of data. So here we've got something called discount. All right, someone look at this first line that we have here, row number 2, and I'm sorry, it's not discount. We do have discount percent on the next one. We've got promo. Someone tell me what 1,4 means. There's enough information in this workbook to answer that question. Yeah, it means 1,4 means, hey, you're going to get, right now, what's the promotion on this product? If you buy this product today, you will, not only will you get a 10% discount, but we're going to give you free shipping on this product. How do you know that? Well, if we come over to our lists sheet, we can see that promotions are listed over here. There's numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then there's the name for it right here. The first 3, they're okay by themselves. The fourth one just says it's a discount, and so if there's a discount, if promo includes a 4 here, there probably should be some percentage discount that's shown over here. Okay. Any thoughts on how we're going to let the user choose the promotions? Go ahead, Mr. Greg. Oh, okay, so we could have checkboxes there, and they could just, they could do multiple ones. That would work pretty well. What don't I like about that? Any thoughts? That's not too bad. Yeah, we'll have to have some connection between the discount percent, which is already showing on our form, but it's only relevant when we've got discount percent chosen. Anyone here from marketing? Anyone here marketing major? We have no marketing majors in class? Oh, you're sort of a marketing major. My guess is the marketing guys, they're going to come up with new kinds of promotions that we haven't thought of with some degree of regularity. It's the Halloween promotion or something. It is, buy any product and get a rubber spider at no charge. They'll come up with something. And so kind of the same problem that we've talked about as potentially adding a department. I'm kind of not willing to take that risk over here with promotions, because marketing department adds a promotion, we want that to go into effect straight away. We don't want to say the marketing department has a new promotion, call the programmers so we can implement it. Don't like it. Okay, so other thoughts. So we need something that can be kind of general and let us select multiple things. I'm not sure why you would think about this unless you can think of kind of other things you've seen in kind of Windows style programming that you might be able to do it with. We have not yet talked about the control that we're going to use. Go ahead. Yeah, a list where you can select multiple items from the list. Yeah, so the drop-down list is nice because the drop-down list is really easy to read off of data. Change the data, the list changes automatically. If there was only a way for us to be able to choose multiple things. Now, in VBA, we can't do that with a drop-down list, but there's a thing called a Listbox that doesn't drop down, just stays open, and you can select multiple things from the Listbox. So that's what we're going to do. Okay. So let's go ahead and take a look. So back on the form, the list box is this control right here. So it's like the fourth one in. So I'm going to go ahead and select that list box, and I'll draw it here under promotions. Lovely. Let's give it a name. I'll call it LST Promo. Now, the good news is, filling the items, we have the same thing. We've got a couple things we have to do here. Number one, we've got to put in the items into the list. We've got to put in the possible promotions that are here, because we don't want to put in 1, 2, 3, 4. We want to actually put in free shipping, free warranty, buy one, get one free, and discount. I think that's what they are. And so, but the good news is this is just exactly the same as a combo box. The way we make the list is just exactly the same as a combo box. So let's go look at our code. We'll get a little refresher on our combo box code, and we should be able to get the same thing right here. I'm not quite sure how I got to user form 2. I must have closed by mistake. So let me close user form 2 and come to my code. Okay, so show data. Here's the combo box. You know what I'm going to do? I'm just going to copy that whole combo box. Not the value. Setting the value here will be different. And I'm going to come, I'll come to the very bottom. So after we do our option buttons, which is our most recent thing, I'm going to change this to be our list box. Instead of combo box, this is list box. All right. We were pulling the items for our combo box off of column number 5 from our list sheet. This one's going to come off of column number 1 or 2 would do the trick because they'll both be filled in. One's the number that represents it and one's the item. But we'll go ahead and put column 2 here. And we're going to add in just whatever text is in column 2. That's pretty good. But we're just building the list. So all I did was I just copied the combo box code and I just said we're pulling it from a different column. It happens the data's on the same sheet. We're saying, hey, we've got to go back to, start on row 2 and then just keep reading them until we run out of data in column number 2. So now if I run the form, the list, my promotions list should be populated with my promotions. Oh, I need to stop it. Maybe I didn't stop the code. So let's stop the code. Oh, I got to change the object name. Oh, that's right. Very good. Let's go ahead and run it again. And we'll see that those probably went into my list of manufacturers. So if I scroll down to the very bottom of my manufacturer list, I should see some promotions. Yeah, there they are. Free shipping, free warranty. Yeah, so we got to change the object we're looking at as well. Very good. I did that on purpose. That was just a quiz. All right, so let's go find that. Right, so instead of manufacturer, this just needs to be changed to LST promo. And that should add the items in there. I'll take a peek again, then we'll come back to the code. There we go. So now my promotions are listed here. That's just delightful. Back to the code, then I'll take your question. Okay, question in the back. Okay, so the question is, what's happening here? So lists is the name of our worksheet. So we come over here, I've got a worksheet named lists. You might be able to see that if you have binoculars there from the back. Out of the cells, the first time we hit this, we're looking at row 2, column 2. So I'm going to continue to do this until we run out of data. Now, before, we were looking at row 2, column 5. That's where our manufacturers are. But row 2, column 2 on that list sheet should be where our promotions are. So we're looking down this column right here, pulling the data in. Yeah, list is not a collection. List is the name of a worksheet. Right. Okay. Now, it turns out, by default, these list boxes, you only select one item out of a list box. So I think no matter what I do, I come here and select another one. I hold the Control key down or the Shift key down or Control Shift or Control Alt Delete. I don't know. You can't do anything here to make it do anything but one. So that's a property that we're going to have to change. So let's go tell this thing that it's allowed to select multiple items. So I'll select the list box, and there should be something called multi-select. So there's a property here called multi-select. There are three options. Single is not multi-select at all. But then there's just like select multi, which then turns it almost like checkboxes. You click it, it turns it on. You click it to turn it off. So each one is toggled individually. The one that you're probably more familiar with is going to be extended, which now lets you use Control to toggle them on and off. So you hold the Control key down and click to toggle them off, or you hold the Shift key and you can select one of them, scroll down a little bit, hold the Shift key down, and select another one, and it will select everything in between them. And so that's multi. So I've got mine set to multi because that's the way I'm used to working with list boxes. I want to be able to have that ability to do not just turn each one on and off individually. Okay, so now that we've set the list box, we've set the multi-select property to which one is it? To 2, which is the extended version. We should now be able to select multiple ones of these with the form selected and press play. Now, if I hold the Control key down, it should be able to toggle them off individually. Select one without anything selected, unselects the others, and Shift selects everything in between. Okay, so we've got it behaving the way we want. We've got it showing the list. Next step is to look at the values that are in the cell. What column are we on that has these in? I don't remember. Column H, so column 8. We've got to look at what's in column 8 and then decide what to do. I got to get to my code. Okay, so here, list box, this is, I'm adding items. And now, list box, selecting the right items. All right. It turns out that this control has a property called list. And the list property is itself an array. Let's put ourselves a button. We're going to play with this a little bit. Let's add ourselves a new button onto this form. What have I done? We're going to add ourselves a new button onto this form that we can just play with. So let's bring a button on. I'm going to leave it called whatever it was called before, because ultimately we're going to delete this code. So I've got a new command. What's the command button? It's the one right here that looks like, I can't even tell what it looks like. It looks like a button with an A and a B on it. Not like the text box with an A and a B in it, but the one that looks like a button. I'll double click that button, which will take me to the code behind the button. So here's command button 1 click. Okay, what I want to do is, let's just do a message box with some information. I'm going to put a message box here, and I'm going to say, my list count. So there's actually a property of the list box that tells me how many items are in the list. And so message box list count concatenate onto that LST promo dot list count. So there's a property called list count. And we're going to do a few more things. So I'm going to concatenate onto that, and I'll break this onto a new line, so underscore. And now I'm going to put the list, the whole list here. Actually, why don't we put list item number 1. Item 1 is going to be LST promo dot list. So there's a property called list. Now, you're familiar with properties being objects, right? We can say we've got the cell.font.bold. And so you're used to saying, oh, there's a property of a range that's the font, and that font is an object. So from the point that I've identified the font object, I can do whatever I would normally do with that object. Now, same thing here with the list, but the list is not an object. The list is an array. And so if I want to get one of the elements out of this array, what do I do? Say it again, louder. I give it an index. I put parenthesis, and then I put a 1 there. So now, when I click this button, it should just put up a message box that says list count, and it shows me some number, item number 1, and it shows me one of the items from the list. So I'm going to go ahead and run this. Looks like I had an error there, so I'm going to go ahead and go back and see what my error was. Oh, I need a concatenation right here. Thank you. It is, but we should be just fine here. Leave that line. Yes, so I was missing my concatenation here. I'll go ahead and run this form. And I click my command button. I'm expecting it to show me 1, 2, 3, 4, and then one of these promotions. The question is, which one will it show? Oh, list count for item 1 is free warranty. So by looking at this, what do I know about the indexing of the array? It starts with, it starts with 0. Oh, there's one more thing I want to do. I wanted these to show up one above each other. So let me just go ahead and do that so you can see what to do. Have we ever talked about the carriage return sequence in Windows? I don't think we have. Lo, these many weeks ago, when we were talking about variables, I showed you the ASCII table. You know, and this is the way that we store. Well, that's kind of a bad version. And let me just zoom in. Wonderful. Oh, now you can see the kinds of things I've been searching for. A docking port for my new phone. Some kinds of array. What's that? Oh, does it have a retirement thing? Does show up all the time? Oh, yeah, that's me. I turned 50 last week. No, yeah, last week. And I'm so ready to retire. Okay. By Google. The funny thing is, you talk to folks, who are like working in real jobs, not being a professor, but a real job. And you ask them, what do you want to do when you retire? What's the number one choice? Teach. Yeah, I want to teach. People want my job when they retire. What do I do when I retire? I don't know. Dress up in colonial clothes and go around places. Okay. All right. So capital A is number 65. And so, that's just the code. That's the agreement. When we're dealing with character data, when you give me a 65, that means A. Well, you'll notice that our first printable character here is number 32. That's a space, and an exclamation point, quote, and so forth. But we've got 32 before that, starting with 0. So we've got 32 before that. They're non-printable. One of them is the bell. Bell doesn't do much anymore these days. But you go back to the days of manual typewriters. What do you have on that manual typewriter when you get to the end of the line? You're typing along, bing! Oh, I'm at the end of the line. My gosh, it's a good thing you told me. I would have typed right off the edge of the page. It's time to hit enter and then come back. And so, where these codes originate from is that we say, we've got printers that are really just typewriters that we're controlling electronically. We send 65 to it, and it goes A, prints the it advances, turns whatever printhead it has to do, and it strikes the paper, puts an A. We send 66, and it prints a B. We send 7, or was it 9? We send 7, and it rings the bell. Ding! It wouldn't even matter where it was. We'd send it a 7, it would ring the bell. But we've got to also tell it that it's time to go to a new line. There are two separate processes happening when I go to a new line. What are they? Think about the typewriter. Let's say manual, but electric typewriter. Okay, yeah, so I got to advance the platen. I've got to do a line feed. I've got to move to the next line. And, yeah, I got to send the print head back to the beginning. So it's called the carriage return. In fact, those are two different codes here. Number 10 is the line feed. So 10 by itself just advances the paper. And 13 is the carriage return. 13 by itself just sends the carriage back to the beginning. Does it seem weird that what we're doing here goes right back to manually manipulating this kind of device? Might seem weird. And you might think, couldn't we do this better? And the answer is yes. In fact, in Unix, they said, you know what? We don't need 10. So in Windows, a carriage return is actually two characters. It's character number 13, carriage return, and then character number 10, line feed. What is it in Unix/Linux? They just say, 10 is enough. You say line feed, we're gonna do the carriage return automatically. But there's no carriage really to return, right? It's just line feed says, great, we're starting a new line. But in Windows, it's that 2-character sequence. And so if I want to break this onto 2 lines, I got to tell it, print the list count, and print this first line, and print character number 13. And character number 10. And that's what it takes to make that do a line feed. Isn't that great? So now if I run this, and I click on my button, that should come up. Ooh, syntax error. Oh, I need one more ampersand at the end because it's broken onto multiple lines. And okay. Not quite sure I got that. Need to have a space before the underscore. We should be good. Okay, let's try it again. So now that breaks onto 2 different lines. I had to put those 2 characters. Fortunately, the VBA language has a constant built into it that does those 2 together. So just like there's a constant for blue, VB blue is just some number. So if I come over here back to my immediate window, and I say, what's VB blue? Then that's that number. It's a named value. It's some location in memory where they automatically put some values in there for me. There's one called VB new line, which contains those 2 characters. VB new line. Now normally, when you print something, it'll push everything down, but this, you'll notice this is going to push everything down by 2 because I'm printing it, it's pushing everything down, but because what I'm printing is a new line, it pushes it down by 2. Seems like a weird thing to say. Maybe an easier way to say it is to show, does this equal character 10 concatenated with character 13? But the 13 has to come first. So that's true. So there's a predefined constant called VB new line. So anywhere you want this pair of characters, you can just say VB new line, and that'll put them both in. Questions? So anytime we're dealing with text in VBA and we said, we got to put a line break in here, that's what we have to do. We actually have to stop the quote right there, concatenate in VB new line. In a lot of other languages, there's like special characters that it will recognize. You put a /n into it, it just goes, new line. But not here. You got to say, stop it and concatenate in those characters. Okay. What do we, now? We just finished that part of the example. Oh, that was just to show that we've got this array that we're dealing with. Now, there's another array. So let's add one more thing on here. Okay, so we're going to have item number 1, and then let's add one more thing. So I'll come at the end here, VB new line, and line break, item 1 selected. Okay, so line 1 itself may be selected or it may not be selected. How does this Listbox keep track of what is selected? And the answer is there's another array, exactly the same shape as the list that we use to keep track of which items in the list are selected. So lstpromo dot list is it's the list, the actual values that are shown in the list, but there's another one, Listpromo. There's another array here called selected. It's an array. It's a Boolean array. the only values that can be in the selected array are true and false. Any guesses as to which one is the default? Yeah, they're false. That's why when you show the list, nothing is selected. But if we toggle one on, it will change whether that one is selected or not. So we're only having the ability right now to show, we're only looking at item number 1 and whether that one is selected or not, but we should be able to see this in action. Let's go ahead and run this. And so that should now tell me selected is false, item 1 selected is false. But if I select item 1 and now do that button again, now it'll tell me that it's true. So I can read whether it's selected or not by reading the array. Any thoughts on how I actually make one of those selected? Greg? Oh, that's when I'm going to want to do it, but how do I do it? And the answer is I just set the value in the array. I just set the corresponding slot in the selected array to true to make that be selected. Okay, so that's where we're headed. The trick is we've got to look at this 1, 4 and decide how to do it. So let's take a look. Now, I think as long as we can assume that these are always numeric and the numbers correspond to our array, and they're separated by commas, there's some nice things we can do. So I'm going to come now back to where I'm initializing. Okay, so here we are selecting the right items. Let's go ahead and declare a variable here. Normally I like to declare things at the top, but let me go ahead and localize this here. Let me dim data as variant. This is the first time I have declared a variable as variant, unless I was teaching you about the variant type. I almost never use variant. Variant is nice for this one thing. All right, so now, V-A-R-I-A-N-T. Okay, now watch this. I'm just going to say data equals, there's a string function, a string manipulation function that we didn't talk about, that the book talks about. It's called split. Let's take a quick look at split real quick. I'm going to come up here to my immediate window, and let's look at split. Question mark. Split takes some string, and it takes a delimiter. So first string I'm going to put in here, red, comma, blue, comma, yellow, orange, green, purple. That is the complete set of secondary and primary colors. Now, I'm going to split this based on the comma. So my first argument here is just a string. Well, I got a space in there I didn't mean to have. Wouldn't hurt to have it there, really. Now, I'm going to say take that whole long string and split it based on a comma. So I'll give it a second argument as a comma. This looks a little bit weird because the comma is separating my arguments, but one of my arguments is a comma itself, but that's what we have. So the first comma that we see there not highlighted is separating the arguments. The second one is just a string, happens to be a comma that's in the string. The split function takes a string and it splits it into an array based on the delimiter that you gave it. So what is this going to return? An array with how many elements? 6 elements. The first variable in that array will just be red. The second will be blue, yellow, and so forth. Now, I can't just print an array out here, but because this is an array, I can tell it right after here in parentheses which one I'm after. Let's say I'm after the 5th one. What will that print? Green or purple? I think it's purple. Yeah, because it's an array. It's a 0-based array. And so red is the number 0, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So let's go ahead and put this as 0, and that should print red. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take data, and I'm going to split the column that I'm after, which I think, was it 9? It's H. So we could actually put a capital H in here in quotes, or we can just put an H for column number H. And I'm going to split it based on the comma. Now, up here, I was just showing one of the elements, but because I made my data variable as a variant, remember, variant will behave the way I treat it. And so I'm just saying, let this variable equal the array that the split function returns. So now I have an array called data that's got whatever elements I have in there. Now, I'm already using R as a control variable, so I'll use it again here. So now I'll just process this array. For R, equals 0 to the upper boundary of data. So whatever I have selected in my, or whatever is in column 8 of the data that I'm working on, in this case, it's going to be 1, 4. I'm saying split that string into an array, and then I want to iterate across that new array. So from 0 to the upper bound of the array. This may be a problem. I think this actually will be okay. If there's nothing in it, I think this will still be okay. Next, R. At this point, let me just do a debug.print of R. So we're not going to see anything different here, but if this code runs, we should see something put here in our immediate window. What I'm expecting to see, in fact, tell me, what am I expecting to see in my immediate window when I run this form now? What should this put in the immediate window? Yeah, I'm on line 1 that's got 1, 4. So this code should take that 1, 4, should split it into an array, and then I'm going to go from 0 to the upper boundary of the array. The upper boundary of the data array is what? 1. So from 0 to 1, and so it should print, R will be 0, and then data sub R is what I want to print. So it'll print 0, 1, and then 0, 4. Let's see if that does the trick. Oh, duplicate declaration in my current scope. I think this is, what's that? I don't think it is. Do I have data dimmed up here? Okay, if it's in save data, oh, thank you. Yeah. It's actually the name of my worksheet. Yeah, it's not a variable name, it's the worksheet name. Darn it. So data, how about just D? No, that's bad. How about promo? So let's dim promo. And then everywhere I'm saying data, I need to say promo. I don't have anything called promo, do I? No. Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, this should be my data sheet. Row, and not row number R, row number row. Yeah, I copied the wrong thing. Just make sure that's right. Yeah, so we've set row is our variable. It's keeping track of which row we're on of our source data. So yeah, couple extra changes I snuck in there. Got to look at the data sheet, and I've got to look at row number row, column number 8, and that's better. Let's try it again. Then we'll come back and look at it if you still have a question. We'll close this. Hopefully, yeah, that printed my information for my array printed out here. That's great. So it went across the array, the number 0 and the number 1 slot. It printed the 1 and the 4. So now I've got control of the values that I'm after. So for each iteration in that loop, I've got that number 1, that number 4. So what do I do? What do I do with the 1 and the 4? I've got to do something with that selected array. Now, how do I make, in fact, let's just think. What is number 1? If I look at my list here, what's number 1? And number 1 over here means free shipping. What slot in my array is free shipping? It's number 0. And what slot is the discount? Number 3. So what do I have to do? Yeah, I've got to realize these things are going to be offset by 1. And so here's what I'm going to do. I guess I don't even really want to do the debug.print here anymore. Instead, I'm going to say the name of my list box, lstpromo, dot selected, S-E-L-E. Let me try that again. Dot selected sub, not 1, but 1 minus 1, 4 minus 1, dot value equals what? True, that's right. So here I'm saying, great, take a look at what's here. I've split this off. I've got a 1. If I've got a 1, I need to set number 0 in my array. In my selected array, I've got to set that equal to true. And then number 3 in the array has to get set equal to true. So now this should highlight number 0 and number 1, which was free warranty, no, free shipping, and a discount. LST promo.selected. LST promo. Wasn't that the example we just did? Selected? LST promo.selected. Not sure if I have that spelled wrong. I'm not seeing it, so let me just go ahead and copy that. It looks right. Oh, here's the problem. Sorry. It's an array. How many properties does an array have? How many properties and methods does an element of an array have? What's an array? An array is an array of not objects. An array is an array of variables. And so somehow this dot value snuck in here on me. It doesn't belong here at all. So selected is an array. It's an array of variables. It's a Boolean array. It's either just true or false. So I identify the one that I want. I set it equal to true or false. No, there's no value involved. Up here, I've got an object that has a value property I'm trying to manipulate. Here, the array holds the values itself. All right, let's try that again. Ah, yay. And it has come up with these two pre-selected. Okay, just what we were after. Let's come back to the code. We got a couple more things to do. Okay, questions on selecting the right items? Go ahead. Okay, so the question is, so does that mean you're only ending up with one being selected at the end? Okay, so by default, when I'm working on this form, it only allows me to select one thing at a time. So I'm going to select this list box, and I have to come over here, and I got to find something called multi-select. And then multi-select has to be set to 1 or 2. Either one will let you set this the way that we're setting it. Okay, what's the next step? Figuring out how to save this data back out. Whew. So let's go to our save data and take a look. There's show data. Here's save data. Save the promos or promotions. Okay, someone talk to me. Any thoughts? What are we going to have to do? Well, first of all, we've got to write out a comma-separated list. Anyone want to kind of take me through what it's going to take? Any thoughts? Well, let's just do this. Let's just iterate across the selected list, and when we find that array, when we find the array element that's selected, we just have to build what we're getting ready to write out. And I think I want to do it in a separate variable. So let's declare a couple of variables here. Let me dim x as an integer. We used r before. I don't think we have an r predefined here in save data. So declaring a new variable here. Let me dim something called temp as a string. So what's x going to start at? I've declared it here as an integer. What's the default value for x? 0. What's the default value for temp? Empty string. Okay, for x equals 0, 2, and there's two ways we can do it. We could say, I want to go to the upper boundary of the selected array, or I can go to the list count minus 1. Either one will get me there. I like list promo dot list count minus 1. Right, because there are 4 items in the list, I want to go from 0 to 3. So I got to go to 1 less than the count. So when x equals 0, I'm going to look at LST promo. I'm look at the the selected array at the xth position, and that itself is true or false, right? So if I look there and it's true, that's one that's selected. Some of you will feel much more comfortable if I come in here and put equals true. Just realize that it doesn't have to be there. Now I have true equals true, which is only true, or I have my expression equals true, which is only true when it's true itself. But you're probably more comfortable with this still, so I'll leave it like this. What do I do if what I have found here is I've found one that's selected? I just have to accumulate the values that I'm finding. So I'm going to say temp equals what it used to be. I'll concatenate on a comma and a comma. And then the number that we're after, which is, let's see, if x is 0, then this is going to have to be 1. So x plus 1. So the number 0 slot in my array is going to be free shipping. Is it free shipping? Free warranty? It's going to be one of those items. But my array is going to have a 0, and my other one's going to start one higher than that. So after I'm done with the loop, I'm just going to say the name of I just got to write that back out to the worksheet. So row, column number 8, value is going to be equal to temp. Now, you'll see there's one thing that's not so desirable about this, but then we'll fix it here in just a moment. Save promotion. So that's what I've done. Let me go ahead and run this. So we've gone through a loop. We've built up temp. First time through the loop, temp is blank. So when I hit this, let's say I've got 2 and 4 now selected. As soon as I come here to the whichever one is selected, temp, which is blank, is now going to, or temp is going to take on a new value. It's going to be a 0-length string plus a comma plus a 2. Next time I hit it, temp will be what it is, comma 2, then concatenate a comma and concatenate on 4. So it should be comma 2, comma 4. And that's what it should put into the cell. Let's take a look. Go ahead and run it. I'll change this to be 2 and 4. I'll say OK. Let me go look at the data that we wrote. And there it is, comma 2, comma 4. Truth is, that'd probably be OK, but what would I prefer to see here? I don't want that comma at all. So let's just get rid of that first comma. I do want some commas, but not just that leading comma. And there's always going to be a leading comma. So that makes this part really easy to get rid of. Instead of saying it equals the temp, what do? Mid of the temp, beginning at 2. So just skip the first one. So start the second character. You know there's a comma there that doesn't belong at the beginning. Start with the second one and put everything else in. That should do it. Go ahead and play with it if you've got it working. Otherwise, keep coding. So this is a little more complex to deal with, kind of a multi-valued cell here. Building this comma-separated variable, this comma-separated list that we're working with here, but that's what it takes. Any questions? In the back? Really? Does it happen when you save or when you open? Probably not when you open it. But it's when you open, right? It's happening when you open. Yeah, so let's think about what's happening. Let's come back up here to where it's reading this. Okay, so I'm going to split this based on the comma. What do I have in my cell right now? Let's go take a look. I've got a leading comma. So how big is my array going to be? How many elements will be in my array if I split on the comma? Looking at this guy right here. 3. It's going to have a 0-length string in the first element. It's going to have a 2, and then it's going to have a 4. And so, we either need to get rid of this leading comma here and make sure it doesn't go back in, or we need to deal with that here. So I will do it this way. I'm just going to say, if someone puts a crazy comma in there, let's just forget about it. So I'm going to put an if statement right before this. If promo sub r is numeric. If promo sub r is numeric, then we'll do this. But the other way would work is numeric, as long as we didn't have the comma to start with in the beginning. Let's see if that works. Got those two selected. I say OK, and it should now get rid of that leading space because it won't put it, or that leading comma because it won't put it back in. So yeah, so now it's put it in clean. This one has just the 2 on it, so it should bring up just with the second item selected. Works just fine. All right, I'm going to go back to the code at the bottom. I think to save. There's the code for save. All right, this next part that I'm going to do is not kind of almost everything we've gone over so far. You're going to have to need to be able to do the project that deals with user forms. This next part you won't need for the user forms project, but it's really kind of fascinating. So I probably don't have time to do it at such a speed that you could work along with me. If you want to try to keep up, that's okay. But let me just kind of go through it, and we'll get it on the video, and that way if you want to go back and look at it, you'll have a good reference for it. Last thing I'd like to do is I would like to actually show the pictures of these products. And we've got that data. We haven't downloaded it yet, but it's over here on Learning Suite under today's day. So it's called productimages.zip. Wonderful. I am going to download this, and then I'm going to open it and extract it. And it should be a potload of images. Just open. So actually, it's here called pics. Well, it's already in a subfolder. But if I go into pics, there's all the individual image files for these. And they're actually named corresponding with the product number. So I'm just going to bring pics into my downloads folder. Is that where I want to be? Where is my, so here's what I'm working on. Product form fall 18. That's the file. That's my Excel file. I'm just going to bring my pics folder into the same location as my Excel file. So it'll copy those out. It'll take a minute to extract them. But now I will have, at the same location where my workbook is, I'll have a folder called pics, and inside that will be all of my images. And they're like named the ID of the product plus .jpg. If I open one of these, it should show the product image. That's some kind of shovel, apparently. Yes, there's some kind of updates for paint.net. Wonderful. Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. Over here in my Excel workbook, in my form, I'm going to use one more control. Let me go ahead and get rid of my command button here, because it's in the way. And the second to the last control here is called the image control. I'm just going to draw this image control on here. And it's called image 1. I'm going to name it IMG prod. So now, and it turns out is that it's got a picture property. And I could just come here and navigate to find a particular picture. Let me come to my downloads. Come into pics. I can choose one of these pictures. And that will just be the picture that's associated with that image. If I just want this to be a static image sitting there, that's how I do it. But I don't want it to be a static image. I want this to show the right image for whatever product we're showing. And so I'm going to have to do something with when I do show data. Now, I don't have to do anything with save because I'm not going to make it so the user can pick a different image. I'm just going to show the one that's there. So let me come to my show data. And this is going to be show the picture. Okay, so the name of my image is IMG. The name of my control is IMG product. Dot IMG product. Oh, that's what it was. Did I just call it prod? And the image control has a method. No, it doesn't. IMG. It has a property called picture. I'm going to set that equal to something. Fortunately, there's a statement built into VBA called, I think it's called load picture. I should have reviewed this. Yeah, good. It's called load picture. So what does the picture property hold? It holds all the bytes of the image file. It actually stores the whole file. It's not storing a reference to the file. It's storing the file. It's not the file. It's storing all the data from the file inside that control. And the load picture statement, you give it a path to a file, and it will just take all the bytes out of that file and return them. And so I'm going to put that into the picture. So I'm going to say load picture. But now I got to tell it the path. And the trouble is, the path is dependent on where that folder happens to be on this machine right now. It would be different for my machine than it is for you. If I'm in my downloads folder and you're probably somewhere else, you could be in your downloads folder, that would be very convenient. But more importantly, if I move this workbook somewhere else, I don't want to have to go and figure out in my code where I have to change this. As long as the workbook is here and the folders of pictures at the same location, I just want this thing to work. Fortunately, there is a method for that. So my workbook, this workbook, has a property called path. And so that's just going to return the path where this workbook is. This file is located where? Same place as the path, concatenated with the, well, I think so, this sounds familiar to me, like we've done this year. Have we worked with the path already? We appreciate, it was before the midterm, so you might have forgotten it. Application dot path separator. That'll bring me the backslash for Windows, a forward slash for Mac, and the name of my file, which should be in my LBLID. LBLID dot caption concatenated with .jpg. Unfortunately, this won't all execute here because LBLID does not have any value until the form's running. So we're just going to say load picture, and I'll pass that whole path into it. It says, go get the workbook, get the path for this workbook, give me a slash, put on the caption here, because that's the images are named after their ID with a JPG. And if that is right, this should, file not found. So I got a file not found error. Let me just debug.print this and see where it's trying to go. Better put it before the error. Downloads 307.jpg. Could be that these first ones are not quite right. What's that? Oh, it's the wrong, thank you, sorry. Oh, I got the image name. You're right, very good. Yeah, we just got to look at column, it's even easier. Look at column G, thank you. So instead of the caption, let's just look at data.cells. Row number row. Was it column G you said? Dot value. We'll run that. Okay. It'd be really nice if you saw this before you left. But that's really kind of the end of the example. So I'll get this working and then we'll post it on the video. Go ahead and see what it's printing out. Underscore instead of a hyphen. Oh, I'm missing my /pics. Hang with me for just one more minute. Ampersand quote /pics / whoops. Should all be path separator instead of the slash, but that will at least get us going. I'll fix it for the video. Last shot. There we go. So now we've got the image, whatever that image is. I choose a different row. Run it again. And I've got the image for that particular one. All right, folks, that's it. Thanks for coming. We'll see you on Wednesday.